ladies and gentlemen, judgment and ladies and gents. The money will be worth 100 cents on the dollar because it is backed by the credit of the nation. It will represent a mortgage on all the homes and other property of all the people in the nation. And because the notes represent a mortgage on all of the homes and property and the banks have no jurisdiction to be foreclosing on anybody's home claiming that they are first right. States. The ownership of all property is in the state. This is a violation of the people's right to property, but the people consented to this violation of their rights when they agreed to the New Deal. And by their conduct and or performance they consented to this quote-unquote deal of a lifetime or the deal for life. Individual so-called ownership is only by virtue of the government, that is, law, amounting to mere user. And use must be in accordance with law and subordinate to the necessities of the state. Senate Document No. 43, 73rd Congress, First Session. Under the new law, the money is issued to the banks in return for government obligations, bills of exchange, drafts, notes, trade acceptances, and bankers' acceptances. The money will be worth 100 cents on the dollar because it is backed by the credit of the nation. It will represent a mortgage on all the homes and other property of all the people of the nation. Congressional Record, March 9, 1933 on hour 1491 p. 83. So, let's break this down. Under this new law, remember, the limitations on government created by the Charter of the United States and of the Constitution, in other words, prohibited Congress from usurping the rights of the people to property in the pursuit of happiness without due process of law. In other words, Congress had no authority to take away anyone's property rights, and remember, this was done before the New Deal was introduced to the people. Franklin Delano Roosevelt came into office March 3, 1933, this before the new so-called law was introduced March 9, 1933. All of this was done under a statute, and not under congressional delegatory authority. We must also keep in mind that the first limit on Congress was that they could not make any law which abridges the right of the people. Respecting freedom, the right to ownership of property is a fundamental due process right. This is a common maxim in law, and no one may be deprived of property in the United States without due process of the law. And the fourth article of the Charter for the Fourth Amendment specifically highlights that no one may be deprived of their right to property, possessions, effects including their person. Yes, the Fourth Amendment recognizes that the people are themselves property, having self-ownership. It is this self-ownership right that individuals get the so-called sovereign right doctrine. They are kings of their own person, so to speak. So, let's get back and break this down, so that some of you who are not grasping, can understand. If you're going through foreclosure, I can only give you this as an argument in addition to everything else you're trying. But you should stop sitting up there and letting those idiots know that it is impossible for anyone to have a lien on any home in America without the approval of the United States government. Through the Treasury Department, and there is a very detailed process for attaining such access to foreclosing on any property in the United States. Remember, all property of the United States is considered property of the United States that has a government obligations. The Treasury is responsible for the repayment of your mortgage as a result of the March 9, 1933 Act and the declared banking holiday of the Federal Reserve and the President of the United States through Presidential Proclamation 2039, which was continued by Congress indefinitely. So even if the President were to rescind the proclamation, it would not affect the Emergency Banking Relief Act of 1933. What you want to keep in mind is that the following is the intent of Congress. You don't need to interpret the act. Congress states their intent, and it's a matter of congressional record, and the courts must adhere to the congressional intent when it comes to statutes. Senate Document No. 43, 73rd Congress, First Session, which states, the ownership of all property is in the state. Individual so-called ownership is only by virtue of the government, that is, law, amounting to mere user. Under the new law, the money is issued to the banks in return for government obligations, bills of exchange, drafts, notes, trade acceptances, and bankers' acceptances. The money will be worth 100 cents on the dollar because it is backed by the credit of the nation. It will represent a mortgage on all the homes and other property of all the people of the nation. Congressional Record, March 9, 1933 on hour 1491 p. 83. The money is issued to the banks in return for government obligations, bills of exchange, drafts, notes, trade acceptances, and bankers' acceptances. What will represent a mortgage on all the homes and other property of all the people of the nation. The money will be worth 100 cents on the dollar because it is backed by the credit of the nation. The money is 100% backed by the credit of the nation. What is the credit of the nation? All the homes and other property of all the people of the nation. That was the New Deal, and in exchange for utilizing your property, and your persons, possessions and affects as collateral. In essence, everything is prepaid. The only problem that has occurred in the past is too many people have been speaking out of the side of their necks, not being able to back up what they're saying. Ladies and gentlemen, from the congressional records you see exactly what the intent of Congress was, so the suggestion, to any of you who have a mortgage, you need to redeem your property back from the United States, and to take control of the Social Securities held in a minor account. Yes, that's right. The very fact that you have a Social Securities account documents that you have securities. You don't have to prove it, make them disprove it. From those of you who are going through foreclosure, bring a copy of the congressional record. You have the titles up there, just do a Google search on it for the specific section. Contact the Library of Congress, asking them for that specific section of the record. Get a certified copy, put that on the record. Let's see if anybody can foreclose on your property once you document that it's an obligation of the United States whereby the Treasury is responsible. They cannot sue you for your property in a state court. Why? Because the Treasury is part of the federal government. It is a federal matter. It is a diversity of citizenship issue. Be that as it may, you will have to study the information. You will have to learn the information. I am not advocating the site that I am about to pursue here. A link is in the description. As some of the information is opinion, the majority of the information, a great 90% of it, is from actual records and actual documentation that you can verify. As I said time and time again, the reason why so many of you are not having success, the reason why so many of you are making missteps, is because you keep trying to invent the wheel. You don't even have a car or bicycle, and you want to invent the wheel. Shame on you. Go by the facts, things you can prove, not just things you think you know. If you can't document it, and prove it directly, then stop saying it. Ladies and gentlemen, the banks are not robbing you, or stealing from your account, or taking from your estate. The banks are using their own credit. Remember, they are part of the people of the United States according to Congress. They are part of the so-called citizenry, as corporations are people too and are persons. All you're going to do is to do a case search for banks can lend their own credit, and you will see the number of cases that continually document that they can lend their own credit. The Truth in Lending Act statement shows that the credit is coming from the bank, not from you. So unless you can prove that they are actually taking from your account, then shut up. Remember, under the new law, the money is issued to the banks in return for government obligations, bills of exchange, drafts, notes, trade acceptances, and bankers' acceptances under the new law. You're a banking institution, and despite what the gentleman says about licenses, you do not need a license. If you need a license, then it would have been illegal for the government to have worked out the New Deal, because there must be value and consideration in all contracts, whether with government or without government. And because the New Deal involved commerce, then pay attention. Whenever the United States enters into commercial business, it abandons its sovereign capacity and shall be treated as any other corporation. People often refer to the aforementioned as the Clearfield Doctrine, but it is the government commercial business doctrine. So the New Deal the United States entered into as a private party and not as a government, because it most definitely dealt with commercial business, which makes it unconstitutional, because it did not do so in its sovereign capacity. Plus, if you read and look at the notes throughout history, the March 9, 1933 Act was a military act. The President even stated he was relying upon the Act of October 6, 1917, that is the Trading with the Enemy Act, and Congress highlights that the March 9, 1933 Act was an amendment to the October 6, 1917 Act, a military act introduced during World War I. You know, I told someone that my father, on my birth certificate, withheld his name. It's not that he wasn't around, it isn't that he wasn't there. He just withheld his name, refused to have his name placed on the birth certificate, not because he was trying to disown me, but because he understood what such implied in reference to the knowledge at that time. What that would mean, that is entering into a contractual agreement or being party to a contractual agreement, for which he chose not to engage. You got to love him, because he knew what he knew. In fact, this was the late 60s or early 70s when you had all of the movements going on, and he was often as a Jehovah's Witness talking to quite a few people, including the individual sitting on the street corners talking about exactly what we were talking about now, and I got to sit and listen to these conversations. I don't remember any of my childhood, but this stuff, I have not forgotten. It is not my job to show you guys how to get out of the system, it's my job to point you to the water, as a Jehovah's Witness, to the waters and fountains of waters of life, as a man, to the doorway. I have several cinder blocks, an anvil, a tractor trailer, and the Gibraltar rock propping the door open so that you will have very little struggle. You just got to get past the cinder blocks, the anvil and the tractor trailer, as well as climb that mountain of Gibraltar, but you get there. I say all of that to say, it's not to be easy. You're going to have your obstacles. The Ian.tv website will be up within the next 15 days, and I will start doing my videos, my way, on my site at that time. So, until then, just remember this, that the government says that your home is a government obligations, which means that government is responsible for the mortgage, not you. You will have to articulate this on the record. And if it works for you, stop trying to get over on your neighbors, stop trying to get over on your friends, stop trying to make money off of the people, help somebody else to do the same. Email me with proof and I will share it with everyone else. You're getting this information free, and you need to reciprocate by sharing success and the proof associated with it. Many are going to be selfish, many are going to try to keep this to themselves. Sorry, it's hilarious because these idiots are getting information from me, I'm getting it from my God. And if you recall, give him the credit all of the time. If you didn't know, his name is Jehovah, he is the only being in all of the existence who named himself. That's he, my friend, my father, the one to whom I give the credit to. It ain't no religious thing, it's a reality thing. Those of you who are my people, and are those of you who are Satcom people, you will just have to stay tuned, as we are going to continue to bring you information. We will share with you our instruments that we are presenting to agencies. You say, what instruments are those? Bills of exchange, drafts, notes, trade acceptances, and bankers' acceptances. I'm a bank, and those mortgages on those homes, or what backs up my instruments. The money is issued to the banks in return for government obligations. Remember, the government obligations is the credits. Why do you think we are going after tax credits? Even if the system should fall, the credit of the nation will not. Some of you will get it, many of you will not. Some of you will be greedy, well sorry, many of you will be greedy. I fear the true God. He neither allows me or permits me to be selfish and or greedy. Which is why I cannot understand, if you claim to serve the same God, how he can permit you to do something he will permit me to do. That amazes me. Maybe one day you will be able to explain to me why he allows you to curse, commit fornication, to lie, to cheat people, and to ignore him most of the time, and things are okay. Because I don't understand, but I thought he was a fair God, an honest God, a righteous God. I guess you are just special. That has to be it.